For a few months we carefully planned on how we could summit Mount Kadam. It was painstaking but worthwhile. Join us as we explore this untamed wilderness in northeastern Uganda. Lukewarm base camp. At 0600 everyone was still enjoying the comfort of their sleeping bags. However, a few lucky ones had sneaked in an air mattress into the camp. Folks had literally kept their ears to the ground. As soon as I mentioned sunrise, I saw multiple heads peeping through the surrounding tents. Everyone scrambled to get out and have a slice of daybreak. Our intentions were for the first light of day to find us on our way up the summit, but it was a big ask, so we chilled. At last we were on our feet hiking up the mountains, and my rule of thumb was not being the first and neither being the last. It is a safe place to be in. The first part of the climb took me by surprise. It was rather steep and I found myself out of breath. Not wanting to be the first to comment, I kept this to myself. It was a great relief when Dan commented on how breathless he was. This exonerated me from being the weak link. The long grass and knee-high vegetation was all wet, as they were still holding on to the morning dew. This gave the plants a pale green hue. Lichens were plentiful in the forest and we intermittently stopped to admire them. 4 of our helpers stayed at base camp, while Kenneth led the way, Dan somewhere in the middle and Felix at the back. By the way, we had 2 Dans in the camp, which was a bit confusing. Never mind. We marched in a single file and never strayed off the path. We were blindly following Kenneth, who was in the lead. I guess in a way this protected the group. Surprisingly, this gigantic tree did not survive the strong winds and rains. This was because its root structure was not deep enough to anchor it down.
Go ahead, Steven.
The ground was wet through with water from the recent rains. This made this part of the hike slightly challenging. Thankfully, the hiking poles had many uses and we put them to use. Looking at this humongous tree, we could not certainly guess how old it was. Stephen was too keen on doing his non-scientific experiments by measuring the relative size of the ancient tree by wrapping his arms round it.
These poor plants don't get any sunlight. Probably that's the reason why there's no undergrowth.
I was still breathless thanks to the initial incline at the start of the hike. It took me a while to recover.
End of the first forest. Thanks, Felix.
Staying dry was a constant struggle as the trail had multiple streams and rivers to cross. The grounds were supersaturated with water and the vegetation was well moist. We looked for the least wet path to cross.
Another forest, forest number 2. No ground vegetation.
Steven's Bluetooth speaker was at full blast, which gave us company through the forest. The music kept our morale high.
Oh, careful.
For the big trees. It's always go to 2,000 altitude, like elevation. Yeah, that's why they're good.
Timothy's creative juices were never in short supply as he skillfully put together his wig and beard. River Narrow is the main river that flows from Mount Kadam, and its waters were weaving through the surrounding rocks. We were reliably informed that it never dries up. Even in the dry season, its waters keep flowing. The hike had an unusual trail as we spent a sizable chunk of our time ascending only to find ourselves descending again. There was no direct route through the mountains. This meant that after a considerable distance of hiking, we had not made any elevational gain, though we were moving forward.
A lot of digging from the monkeys, colobus monkeys, looking for snakes, scorpions, ants on the ground.
This is a Mairungi tree whose leaves are used as a stimulant by the locals.
That rock in the middle is base camp
No, in between.
where we started from this morning.
That valley is where our tent The Karok is where we sat.
Mount Kadam is largely unexplored, which is unlike most popular mountains in East Africa. This makes it an attractive destination, offering a challenging trek off the beaten track. Its peak, Nachipai, is the second highest in the Karamoja region, second to Mount Moroto, which is 3,083 meters, and leaving Mount Morongole in the third place at 2,749 meters of elevation. Now this was the tricky bit, scrambling up the rocks with handholds. No ropes were available. The uneasiness climbing up this rock was palpable. Having successfully secured my position on the ridge, I snatched a look at Stephen and Julie making their way up. It was not a comfortable position to be in. No gym work could prepare you for this kind of exercise. We made use of all the muscle departments in our bodies.
That's where we're going at 3 o'clock.
She doesn't want to follow the other, so she's dodging the body.
Oh my God. Thank you. It's not simple.
The landscape was littered with rich vegetation that served as fantastic reserves for wildlife. My guess would be the habitat has changed very little over the last few years. Some of the vegetation had been burnt to encourage growth of younger and newer grasses. We were told there are people who live in the mountains, and I guess they are the custodians of this place. The weather forecast predicted conditions to be calm for the entirety of our hike. However, we soon realized that predictability is a difficult concept on a mountain. The multiple clouds that were clinging on the mountain ranges filled us with uncertainty.
What's there? I know you've seen it, friend. Where are you looking at?
I know what I mean. These are anything. What like is looking up a
After a few hours of slogging within the dense waterlogged thick forest, we reached the plateau of the mountain ranges. It was a much welcome relief to our exhausted legs. The path over the upper plateau was not straightforward, and it was quite frustrating as we seemed to be going round in circles. Spotting an antelope was a breath of fresh air as we raced round to catch a glimpse of it. We actually saw a few, but they were too fast to be caught on camera. We were the only souls climbing Mount Kadam on this occasion, which made it extra special. We preserved our warmth by wrapping around in warm gear, keeping our beanie hats on, gloves were nearby, and having multiple layers on. Altitude sickness was not a problem any of us had to deal with, as our ascent was gradual. and we finally made it to the summit at Nachipai. The views southward from the summit were breathtaking, as we saw multiple peaks whose names we are not privy to. Certainly we are now certified mountain goats, and we had a mountain she-goat in our midst. We were ecstatic as all of us with our various talents, experiences and capabilities were able to summit. A lot of credit goes to the two Dans, Stephen, Felix, Kenneth, who made it possible. A few centimeters from the summit is a sheer drop, and I would not even advise anyone to steal a glance.
Oh, you got.
Uganda, oh yeah. Hey, Dan.
Yes?
That is your flag.
Yes.
You get to the country, no problem.
We chose to momentarily forget our predicament of the descent, and we continued to indulge in our bliss. We embraced the freedom, fresh air and privacy one enjoys at 3,063 meters above sea level. The views were mind-blowing. As we left the mountain, most of us exchanged a victorious look. Conveniently, we had forgotten one of the fundamental laws of gravity, that what goes up must come down. We had a light bulb moment. Oopsie. We had to get back to base camp. It was a bittersweet moment. In the near distance was Tipso, which was one of the ranges of Mount Kadam, but believed to be of much lower altitude than Nachipai summit. Our descent was shrouded in apprehension as the bottlenecks of the hikes were deeply engraved in our minds. These included rock climbing areas and the slippery slopes. Most of us harbored muted thoughts on how we are going to navigate this, but our guides had the situation under control. People with fertile minds had their imagination running wild as they alluded to this trunk resembling body parts. I'll let you be the judge. This kept us entertained as we waited for the rest of the team to catch up. As the evening began to draw in, we set up camp at 2,450 meters. converged around for a hot meal prepared by the team. Folks had multiple servings. I guess after an exhausting day, your appetite is bound to be high. Everyone disappeared into their tents and the night welcomed us with a downpour. Unfortunately, it was not your usual sprinkle, it was a rainstorm. The rain kept coming, the wind was relentless, and the quietness from the neighbors was profound. The multiple odds going through my mind that this could go wrong at 2,450 meters were endless. It all soon passed and I drifted off to sleep. The morning brought with it a lovely warm sunny day with new opportunities. Would I do this again? Definitely yes. This is what makes us humans. A defiant spirit that helps us humans survive. Through all the hurdles, we came out the other side with a sense of accomplishment, joy, and being alive. Mount Kadam took us by surprise. It was full of character, the lush green forest, multiple streams and river crossing, the scrambling, waterlogged grounds, temperate vegetation, the stubborn clouds that never stopped giving. After exhausting few hours, we finally made it to Nachipai town, bringing our hike to a close. Join us again as we dive deeper into the Karamoja plains. Till next time.